In this first example, we're going to look at a chart using all the first 12 Vargas, Vargas 1 through 12. Of course, that means 8 Vargas. And see how just simple planetary positions have a lot to say. If you were just to start looking at a chart, just simply seeing what house a planet's in would seem like to be a really important thing, wouldn't it? But we hardly really spend any time learning that. Rather, we just start going to all these other things, planets doing this together and not doing this together, and so on and so on. But there's the very basic beginning point of a planet's in a sign, in a house, what's it going to do? Now, one reason people rarely really spend a lot of time analyzing a house that simplicity-wise, that easily, is because it doesn't give great results if we don't use the other Vargas. For instance, in this Rashi chart, we've got Jupiter sitting in Sagittarius, and we're going, oh, Jupiter's in the 3rd house in Sagittarius. 3rd house things will be wonderful. And then furthermore, we might go, well, and Jupiter's strong aspect is to the 9th house of 57 points and the 11th house of 56 points. So 3rd and 11th house things will go wonderful. But that's not necessarily going to be the case. For instance, you look over in the Navamsha and you see, well, Jupiter's now in a great enemy sign. And so we have to take all that into consideration if we really want to see what Jupiter's doing to the 3rd and 9th house. Otherwise, by just looking at it and saying, oh, Jupiter's in the 3rd house in the Rashi, that just indicates particular potential. Like, what's the potential of Jupiter in the 3rd house? Well, great memory, great capacity for retention, tendency to love learning and books. You're going to usually find people with Jupiter in the 3rd are avid readers. And so those are some of the potentials. Sweet-willed is another quality of Jupiter in the 3rd house. Not a conflictual, hard-nosed person, but a sweet-willed person. Okay? Possibilities. But to really see the predictive effects, we have to look at the dignities and all the Vargas. And that's what we're going to do in this example. We're going to look at all the planets, starting with the Sun, and simply see what house they're in, what house they're strongly aspecting, and see what that planet's doing to this chart. Is it helping or hindering what, and so on. So the Sun's sitting in the 10th house. 10th house in the Sun, that's a combination of success, right? And power. It makes you have power in your profession. Either a leader or authority or someone who signs off the other people. So someone with authority when Sun's in the 10th house, someone has a leadership rule. Sun in the Rashi chart's in a neutral sign. So that's not going to be a big focus of their path, because the Sun is just in a neutral sign there. So he's not boosting that 10th house, but he's not hurting it either. Okay? Now, since the Sun's in the 10th house, the most important house we need to look at, or Varga, is the 10th Varga, the Dasamsha. In the Dasamsha, we find that the Sun is in Scorpio, which happens to be a great friend sign. And now the Sun's really empowering the 10th house. So in the context of the bigger things this person has to do, in the context of their career, they're going to really much have a leadership ability. And that's very true about this person. They don't march around like a leader. They don't act like a leader. But at work, they're the leader. The 10th Varga shows that. So they're not a leader in every part of their path because Sun is just neutral in the Rashi chart. But at work, they easily find themselves getting the leadership roles very quickly. Okay? And of course, the Sun Dasha, when it runs, is going to help boost their professional success and leadership and management type responsibilities at work. Okay? It does it every time the Sun Dasha or Antardasha comes along. In other Vargas, the other most important Varga to look at for that Sun is going to be the 4th Varga, because the strongest aspect the Sun makes to any Bhava cusp is the 4th to 56 points. So that's the chart of fortune. And that Varga, we see the Sun is exalted. Okay? Now, the 10th house is really about taking command, is what it's about, and especially when it's connected to the sun. It's about taking charge, being the king, taking command. And the sun, like the moon, the sun and moon are always sort of karakas of yourself in most cases in astrology. Unless they're really, ruling a house of another person, they're almost always going to be specifically you. Now, so if the sun rules the 9th or 10th, there's a good chance it could be the father. But in most cases, the sun is going to be you as an individual, or you as a soul creating your path. So here, that sun, a commanding sun, as we talked about, it takes command in the context of creating its fortune. 4th house, real estate, home, and creating its fortune. Well, this person has very much done that. They're largely responsible for the house they live in, more so than their husband. They're financially largely responsible for the house they live in, for paying for it and so on. So their fortune is something they've, commanded in their own life. Self-made fortune, because sun is self, right? But then we can look at the sun in the other Vargas too. In the Hora chart, the sun's in a neutral sign. So he's not going to really help a lot of things, okay? Then this simply means that, again, the sun is in the 10th, and that's a position of command. That sun is not going to really be that commanding in the context of taking care of its responsibilities. Which means, commanding means you see the responsibility and you go after it, versus being told this is what you need to do, and then you go and do it by another person who you're sharing responsibilities with. But the sun does rule the 5th house. So the one house that the sun is helping is the 5th house, the house of children. As it turns out, the one responsibility that this person really took charge of, as we'd expect the 10th house sun to take charge of, was in the context of their children. Okay, all other responsibilities in the family, in the household, were, when they had a family and had those responsibilities, were all largely based on the husband making those choices, okay? And taking care of all those things. Except children. That's where she had full responsibility. Okay? If the sun had been helping some other houses here, that commanding sun would have taken charge of some other aspects of life too, but it just wasn't. In the Drekana chart, the sun is in a neutral sign, so he's not going to be doing a whole lot, either way. In the Chaturtamsha we talked about in the Saptamsha chart, the sun is sitting in a neutral sign, it looks like. Oh, friend sign, sorry. Sun's in a friend sign. So in the Saptamsha chart, the sun's in good dignity, which means all the houses he's going to influence, he's going to have some power benefit to. So that commanding sun, in the context of Saptamsha things with his children, again, like I said before, it doubles the emphasis on being in charge of children and being in command of children. And that commanding quality made this person a very good mother, because they had that commanding quality with their kids, which kids need to be, they need to follow their parents. They need to listen to their parents. And so that sun made for a better mother. Now the sun, no, it's not a feminine planet, but the act of being a mother is a masculine act. So a strong sun and a strong Mars helps a woman be a better mother in many ways. And of course, that's why in Gemini astrology, Mars is one of the planets that represents your mother. That's your mom, and it's her mothering role, which is a masculine role of taking care of you. Okay? Your mother is feminine from your father's point of view, but from your point of view, your mother is a masculine force to be respected and listened to, and who we appreciate for all the things they do for us and all the suffering they go through and sacrifices they make. Okay, so children, that sun is, that commanding, position of the sun is boosting, the 10th house, helping her be more commanding. And of course, the sun aspects the fifth house, the 47 points, which is nice too, the house of children. But the next most important house is the fourth house it aspects. And again, the fourth house is the place and for the dynasty to grow. Okay, the home and so on. And then we see the sun really boosting that too and making that a better place through them taking command over that too. So everything in the context of the children, this person was really commanding. But again, in general in their life, or in their Rashi chart, the sun's just neutral. It's not that they shirk being in charge or in command. They just don't naturally find themselves there in every part of life. They're just not a commanding personality in general, just where they have to be, according to where the sun's in good dignity. In the Navamsha, the sun's in a neutral sign, so he's not doing a whole lot of interesting things there. In the Dwadasamsha, the sun is in a great enemy sign. So here, finally, we have a position where the sun is damaging a house, a Varga. Okay, the only of these first 12 Vargas where the sun is in bad dignity is the Dwadasamsha, where it's in a great enemy sign. So that means there it's going to hurt the 10th house. Okay, while that can cause conflicts with the father. Okay, power conflicts, as the 10th house is the house of responsibility. Now we have the sun there that's in a bad dignity, and a bad dignity sun will find itself in situations it can't lead successfully in, which creates frustrations. So that lack of ability to command their life actually interfered with their relationship with their parents and especially with their father, and caused some family frustrations there. So the sun is hurting the 12th Varga. It's the only one. So this commanding quality of theirs will get them in trouble with their ancestors. It'll be different than their ancestors. It doesn't get supported by their ancestors, doesn't get supported by their father. And there was things this person took upon themselves to do in life that caused, a lot of unhappiness with their parents, and took them away from their ancestral background. Okay, so that independent urge of the sun got in the way of their ancestral life, their parental, the benefits they can gain from their parents. Okay. And the other planet we see that's in Bhagdignity in the Dwadasamsha is Venus as well, but we'll probably get to that later. We won't jump ahead too much. So now we've seen how this commanding possibility of the sun really works, because that's what the sun is about in the 10th house. It's about being in charge and taking command. And in their average life, their natural way of being, they're just not more than an averagely commanding person, because the moon's in a neutral dignity. But when it comes to their children responsibilities, they're in command. When it comes to their work, they naturally take on positions of leadership. They're just more suited for it. But they don't have to be that way in all parts of their life. Which, you know how lots of times people, when they have to be in charge for everything? No, not this person. Where does their commanding personality get them in trouble with? With their parents, Dwadasamsha. And now we've seen a really really simple way to rattle off a few very simple yet completely true predictions about that sun and its effect in their life. Okay? Just that easy. Because we're just doing simple astrology. Look at a planet in a house, see what its house cusp it's influencing, and see what that means. And you have to get creative to pull all the possible meanings, because you have to consider Karakaships, Baba, Vargas, and come up with the possibilities. Okay? The second planet is the moon. The moon is also in the 10th house. Okay? What is the quality of the moon in the 10th house? The moon in the 10th house is the position of forgetting about your own needs in order to fulfill the needs of others. The moon in the 10th house makes a person mother of all. Okay? These people easily sacrifice their own needs for the other people around them. It's not a good position for personal self-fulfillment, though. The moon has Digbala in the 4th house. When it's there, a person chooses things that help them emotionally feel fulfilled in life. In the 10th house, it does the opposite. It helps the person direct their lives towards things that are emotionally fulfilling more towards other people than themselves. So those people are really the mothers that can just make so much sacrifice for other people. One person I like to think of who has that is Gandhi. So here's a guy who's, just sacrificed all of his needs to fulfill the needs of the people. So this person has that moon there. And the moon's in Cancer in the 1st house, in the 1st Varga, in the Rashi Varga. So this person very easily gives up their own needs while being happy because the moon's in Cancer, a happy position. They're relatively happy, they give up their own needs, and they really are always the person who's the caretaker, the nurturer in every situation in their life as in general. This is always the person that if you have a problem, they have a problem, you come to them, it's your problem that you're going to be talking about, okay? It's your problem that's going to be addressed. So an extremely caretaking person in general in their life. Now we want to see how that bleeds through to the other areas of their life. Again, since it's in the 10th house, we can start with the 10th Varga. In there, the moon is in a friend sign, it looks like. Yeah, moon's in a friend sign. So in the context of their work and career, that quality is going to be there, which means this would be a great boss. This would be a great person to be above you because they're always going to be willing to sacrifice their feelings to create the space that makes you feel happy and working in. That mother of all quality. So at work, they're going to have that very accommodating quality. And of course, that moon is going to boost that 10th house and give them more success. That quality is going to give them the greater rulership and leadership abilities, because it's not just the king, the sun, who can lead, it's also the queen who can lead as well. And so this person is very much a queen in the context of her leadership abilities. Sun and the 10th is the king, moon and the 10th is the queen, sorry. So she's much more a queen than she is a king, okay? And how does a queen rule differently than a king? Well, a king rules by commanding. A queen rules by example, by behaving a certain way, by doing certain things. As being an example, Gandhi, again, was a great example who led through, a great example of somebody who led through example. Lots of things he did that he told the people, he did them himself. He led through example very much, okay? Now, that's not the only way he led. He had very many other powerful things, but just as an example of that. So this person leads through example, through their presence, by doing the right thing, and encourages others to feel like they want to do that thing too. And that gives them the leadership of the queen. People want to follow the queen because of her goodness and virtue, of her doing the right thing, and that makes people want to follow the queen. Well, the king leads because he commands people to do, and people want to follow that command. So very much good leadership ability with that moon. The moon's a critical planet in the Hora chart. It's the most important planet in the Hora chart, and so we always want to see what that planet's doing in its important Varga. There, the moon's in Cancer as well. So great, even creates a better 10th house moon thing where this person becomes very responsible. And they're not responsible, as we've seen, through the sun being a commander and commanding things. They're responsible just out of, their natural way of being. They just are a responsible person, and that urges people to be responsible who are in her life, who know her. Like, for instance, all of her children are extremely responsible as well. Again, because they had this mother who led by example, okay, and they wanted to follow their mother, who is the queen. So, this ability to fulfill their obligations and responsibilities is strongly marked because that moon is in the 10th. Even at the expense, again, she doesn't have any problem giving up her own needs to fulfill her responsibilities, which is what the moon in the 10th is all about. So great moon there too. And then the strong moon aspects the 4th bhava strongly to 51 points. It's the strongest aspect to a bhava. In the Chaturtamsha, the moon again is in the Cancer. It's in good dignity. It's going to boost the 4th house, increase the fortune. So this merit that she achieves through leading by example, of being very giving and the caretaker, will garner her more fortune in this lifetime, make her a more fortunate person. In the Saptamsha chart, moon's in a friend's dignity. So it's going to help the Saptamsha. It's going to help everything there. Not as strong as some of the other Vargas, but it's going to help. So it'll help them with their children. It'll help them, have useful partnership things with their partner. Saptamsha is not the most important Varga for the moon. Again, the most important Vargas will be the Varga relating to the house that the planet's in, and the houses it aspects really strong. And of course, every planet has its most important Varga. So for the moon, the most important Vargas will be the Hora as the most important Varga for the moon. The Dasamsha, because the moon's in the 10th. The Chaturtamsha, the 4th Varga, because the moon strongly aspects the 4th house. The 7th bhava, it only aspects it to 5 points. So the moon's not as critical in the Saptamsha. Okay? Now, it's important in the Saptamsha in the context of this. Other important bhava in the Saptamsha is the 4th Varga, right? And we know we have to look at the 4th bhava for the moon because it's making a strong aspect to that 4th, which means we also have to, anytime we look at the 4th in the Chaturtamsha, we also want to look at the 4th in the Saptamsha, right? So, in the Saptamsha, the moon's in a friend sign. That's good. That, again, shows her queenly command, creating a better home life, a better environment for her dynasty, her children to grow and thrive in, which was very true with this person. Okay? In the Navamsha, the moon's in a neutral sign. It's not going to do a whole lot there. It's not a critical planet there. In the Dwadasamsha, the moon is in a great friend sign, which is great. So it's going to help the Dwadasamsha. And so this moon has helped sort of improve upon any negative feelings that the troublesome sun might have made. Okay? They took command at some parts in the life that caused some family upset, but the moon itself, is also there, and the moon's in good dignity, and so the moon helps that 10th house and helps her generally, caretaking qualities help warm her family back up so there's no permanent damage. So there's good and bad, but there's some good stuff too, okay, and that's the moon, which helps as a healing balm, sort of. Again, people who are willing, who can give up their own needs and take care of other people will always win another person back, and that's one of the nice qualities of the moon when it's in the 10th house. Okay, next planet is Mars. Mars is in the 9th bhava, and Mars is influencing the 3rd bhava strongly. It's influencing the 3rd bhava to 60 points. Then it influences the 4th bhava very strongly to 57 points, and the 12th bhava very strongly to 58 points. So Mars influencing a lot of bhavas really strongly. To start with, we'll look at the bhava it's in, which is the Navamsha. Is the 9th Varga, which is Navamsha. So what does Mars in the 9th? What does Mars in the 9th mean? Well, simply put, that means someone who's willing to fight for what they believe in. All right? Mars is where you're going to fight. Mars is where you'll exert your will. Mars is where you'll have strong opinions. And for this person, it's in regard to their beliefs and what they believe is the right thing to do. The person's level of fulfillment they get from believing that this is where they need to be is the Navamsha chart. And that's what helps them choose the path. So how is Mars in the Navamsha? That's the important thing. Well, fortunately in the Navamsha, it's in Aries in the first part. So it's in its Mula Trikona. So it's very much boosting that 9th house. So this person is an idealist. They will live honorably in general in their life. And that means they'll also live honorably in the context of their marriage and relationship. Mars will be a great planet for holding those things together. They'll fight for what they believe is true, which is Mars, and they'll live honorably, which is Mars. Mars, you'll remember, Moon is Manas, Saturn is Atma, and so on. Mercury is speech giver. Mars is Sattvam, which is strength of character or honor. And so this Mars is good for that in this Navamsha chart. The important Varga for this Mars, because Mars is in the 9th in the Rashi chart, or conjuncts the right 9th Bhava cusp. The other important, anytime we look at the Navamsha, we need to look at the Drakana, right? And also the strong aspect of Mars is to the 3rd Bhava. In the Drakana, Mars is in a friend sign, in a decent dignity, so helping relationships with siblings, helping this person be able to make friends with their associates by them letting in their minds, or not forcing their ideas and thoughts on people, which causes frustrations, but also not being meek and trampled by people with different opinions, but someone who can live happily with their associates and siblings, even though they have different opinions and ideas about what's the right thing to do. And also, through those differences, being able to find some common meeting ground to work together as teammates. This person does all that very well. Okay, this person grew up with 9 siblings, family of 10. Okay, and this Mars went a long ways in creating good sibling relationships. And the age, of course, I think it was 16 years of difference between the oldest and the youngest child. So a lot of years. By the time the last one was born, the first one was about to go off to college, pretty close. But still, this person didn't have animosity with any of their siblings. Mars very much helped that. This good Mars strongly influencing the 3rd house. And of course, that's an important Varga for Mars, is the Drakana. So it's a good thing that Mars is in good shape in this Varga to help the 3rd Bhava out. Some of our other siblings don't have that good of a Mars, though. And those siblings who don't have had little wars amongst themselves that have caused some really hard feelings and periods of not talking with each other. But this person, because of their good Mars, has never had that with any of her siblings. With some of her siblings who had bad Mars, there's been times where she felt hurt by them, or maybe thought they were being unfair to another sibling, but they never had a break with any of those siblings. Okay, so this great Mars, strength of character to deal with their associates and siblings in a good fashion. This person hasn't, to my knowledge, hasn't had quarrels with working with people. Okay, they've got this noble quality of this Mars to really help them. Mars in the 9th house can be a really, really nice thing. And this is a great Mars too, because it's aspected strongly by Jupiter and doesn't have any unfavorable influences to it. No enemies aspecting it. It's an awesome Mars. Mercury might aspect Mars to a point or less. Let's see. Mercury doesn't even aspect it. Friend Jupiter to 59 points and Saturn a neutral to 33 points. So really good Mars there. Okay, other Vargas we can look at Mars. Well, Mars aspects the 12th Bhava really strongly. And Mars is always going to aspect a lot of Bhavas strongly. Most planets will just aspect the Bhava opposite it strongly. But Mars will also aspect the Bhava, the 4th and 8th from it very strongly. Jupiter will aspect the Bhavas 5th and 9th from it very strongly in most cases. And Saturn will aspect the Bhavas 3rd and 10th from it very strongly in most cases. So we should look at all these other really important ones too. In the Dwadasamsha, Mars is in a friend sign too. Because it's going to have this Mars is going to have a big influence of the benefits they receive from their ancestors. And fortunately, that's going to be a good benefit. Also in the Dwadasamsha, the 3rd Bhava is an important Bhava, and Mars aspects that strongly from good dignity. So this shows the parental influence was fair between the siblings. The parental influence did not encourage sibling rivalry. Actually, I have a chart. Maybe I'll pull that tomorrow for the next video. If I can remember it, whose father actually set the siblings up against each other. Always was causing the siblings to compete and created a lot of animosity by selecting favorites and having the kids basically fight it out, and not physically, but in competitive ways. But this person's parental influence was such to help encourage the children to work together as teammates, treated everyone as an equal teammate. And you see that by this really nice Mars in the Dwadasamsha. Aspecting the important third bhava in the Dwadasamsha, and also strongly aspecting the critical 12th bhava in the Dwadasamsha as well. So, their strength of character, which is Mars, their ability not to be pushy and frustrated, which is a good Mars, but the happy use of their will, which is a good Mars, encourages the benefits they get from their ancestors. And in general, that's an ancestral benefit. This is something in general their parents had and their ancestors before them. It's a family ancestral trait. And that's very true as well. I've done the readings for these people's parents when they were alive, and they were both just really wonderful and enjoyable people who didn't push their way through lives and hurt and step on toes. So it's a sort of a family ancestral thing whenever you see something in the Dwadasamsha. So it's really looking like a good Mars. Mars is strongly aspecting the 4th bhava, which is the house of real estate, and the Chaturtamsha is important. Mars in neutral's dignity there. So it's not really boosting the need for real estate, the hunger for real estate. This person's never owned more than one property, the one they live in. When you see a really good Mars in the Chaturtamsha really boosting the 4th house, the person may have a lot of money and a lot of wealth saved away in real estate. Not so this person. They're just average, which means they can own the house they live in if there's other good things, which there is. There's a sun and moon, good aspecting the 4th that we've seen. So this person has always lived in a house that they've owned, pretty much since they moved out. I think they lived in an apartment for 1 or 2 years after she moved out from her parents, and the rest they rented for 1 or 2 years. Other than that, her whole life has been in a house. Thanks in large to a good Chaturtamsha. But Mars didn't help this person have multiple properties or a lot of wealth saved, stored away in properties. It was very sort of average in that. In the Saptamsha chart, Mars is in a friend sign. So that good strength of character, that disciplining nature also is beneficial in respect to them raising their dynasty, raising their children, and being a good mother. So this person, you've seen, has all in all a pretty good moon and really a great Mars in many ways, just dignity-wise. And those two things made this person a good mother, especially Mars. A good Mars really helps a woman be a good mother, because Mars is the mother. And so much of mothering is about doing the right thing with the kid that the kid needs without getting angry and frustrated. And a good Mars helps a person do that. People who've got Mars with Saturn or something like that, or a starved Mars, Mercury aspecting Mars or something, but basically with a starved Mars, have a much, much harder time raising their kid. That mother will get much more angry and frustrated at the kid and not really discipline the kid until they're so angry. They don't really have the patience. Where a good Mars really gives a mother great patience with children, which this mother has. Okay, Mercury is the next planet here. Mercury is sitting in the 11th house. That means Mercury is going to be able to produce or ruin gains. And the 11th house is sort of a vague house. It's the house of gains. It's getting benefits from anything in life, whatever it is that we want to have benefits from. And we'll largely try to benefit of the things that Mercury rules. And do it based on the degree of strength in the Vargas that Mercury has strength in. Okay? Now here in the Rashi chart, Mercury seems to be in a great friend sign. So this gives the person, definitely some ability to gain what they want in life. Okay? To grow and move forward. Now, in general, as a general rule in astrology, the malefic planets like Sun, Mars, Saturn, in the 11th house make a person a stronger person in general, meaning a person who can push through the hard things in life more readily. The benefics like Mercury, Jupiter, Venus in the 11th will make the person, gain just as much in life as the malefics, but they won't have that strength to just march out into the world and gain what they need to. Okay? So you can say that benefics in the 11th make a person more docile, which when life is good and they're not being challenged makes for a happier existence, because gains will come really readily and easily. But in times where life gets really hard, they might not have as much fight in them. And that also means like when they get sick physically, at that point, malefics in the 11th help you fight yourself better to better health. Benefics are usually inclined to take more the easy way out in the 11th and things like that. So it's not the best place for benefics to be, but any planet in the 11th becomes a benefit of the chart because something you can get ahead with in general. Now, in general, this person is going to be a growing progressive person because Mercury's in the 11th in good dignity. Good house in the 11th and good dignity will help you progress in life. What things are they going to progress with? Well, things that Mercury rules, 9th house and 12th house things. Well, that's in getting their life together in accordance to what they believe is the way it should be. That's something this person has grown into this lifetime. And again, the 11th house, planets in the 11th house are things that can be challenged early on, but which over time grow and get better. You'll remember that angles and trines make the realization of something really easy. 6th, 8th, and 12th create a lot of crises around it. 3 and 11, and 2nd, 3rd, and 11th create some extra responsibilities or delays or processes to it. So they're not ideal. So, the person will move forward, but again, with these Mercury things, it'll be over time. So over time, what they, believe is right for them in life will get better. Over time, Mars, which is 7th house, Mercury rules the 7th lord of relationship and the 2nd house of wealth, those things will grow. It's true, wealth and relationship happiness grew throughout time in this person's life. Okay? They've been married more than once, 3 times. Each marriage gets better. Okay? Because there's growth. It's improving. The 3rd, 6th, and 11th are houses of improvement. So the Lord of Mercury, the Lord of Mars, in the 11th helps relationships to improve through the help of Mercury. And it is a good Mercury. The 11th house is not a critical house in the context of any Varga chart. It's an important house with every Varga. It's the house that lets us get ahead with every Varga. Okay? So in the 2nd house, Mercury in the 11th is getting ahead with our responsibilities. In that case, Mercury's in good condition. It's in a friend sign, so it's going to help them grow into greater success with their responsibilities. How? Because Mercury rules the 3rd and 6th cusps in the horror chart, which is effort and industry, 6th house, hard work and effort. And that's true. This person is a hard worker, and that's helped them increase their well-being in life. One thing I like to use as the horror chart, a keyword for the horror is like well-being. Just feeling like everything in life is okay and taken care of. That sense of well-being, that everything's in place, there's no emergencies, there's no fires, there's no deaths, it's just everything's okay. That's what we want in life. That's a good horror chart. And Mercury has helped them to grow and increase in that. In the Dracona chart, Mercury goes into a friend sign as well. So again, increased friendliness and enjoyments with their siblings and associates. Okay. In the fourth Varga chart, Mercury rules, Mercury's in the 11th again, and it's again in a friend sign, so it's in good dignity. It's going to help that 11th house. It's going to help the fourth Varga increase and give more gains, which is greater fortune. And of course, Mercury is the key planet in the 11th, so fortune will grow over time. Because again, it's conjuncting that 11th cusp. It's going to produce growth in the fourth Varga. Mercury rules the third and sixth bhavas in the Chaturtamsha as well. So again, we see hard work and effort is how this person's life moves forward. They enjoy working hard. They find it productive. They don't mind working towards a goal. They enjoy that because of this good Mercury. If Mercury had been in bad dignity in this case, it would have been the kind of person that hated the fact they had to work towards a goal. They didn't want to go through the road that led to that goal. This person, they have a goal. They simply just start the process and get there eventually because of that good Mercury. In the Saptamsa chart, Mercury's in a neutral sign, or is an enemy sign. Actually, it's an enemy sign, I think. Okay, Mercury's an enemy sign. So here we see a place where Mercury's in bad shape in the Saptamsa, the dynasty chart. So Mercury's going to hurt some growth in the context of their children. Okay, and like I said, this person was a great mother. The kids felt very lucky that they were raised by this mother. However, we still have this Mercury to deal with. And of course, Mercury is strongly aspecting the fifth house. The strongest, the fifth house of children, the 59 points. So now we have a place where Mercury is actually reducing growth and frustrating growth. And that's in the context of growing with their children. Their children, 3 of their children are living very different lives. And the other child lives far away. So they've kind of very much, the kids have adopted very different ideas and lifestyles than the mother. And the mother actually, I guess the better way to say it is the mother adopted new lifestyles that she didn't raise the children under. And so the children sort of more live how they were raised, but the mother kind of lives differently now. And so there's actually less connection and room for friendly satisfaction than there used to be. Again, because Mercury in this chart is going to actually deteriorate the gains and benefits and fulfillment that comes from their children. And actually a big part of that happened, the biggest part of that happened when they were the last time they were in the Antardasha of Mercury, when the mother really started going, her goals directed her towards things that were very different from how the children lived their lives, and as a result, there was not as much room for interchange. Mom would want to talk about that, kids would want to talk about that, and they wouldn't have as much to talk about because they just wanted to talk about different things. So Mercury has caused a lot of their interest to grow apart. That doesn't mean emotionally they're growing apart, because those we have to look at other planets like the moon and these other planets. But in the context of their interest and where they're growing, this Mercury shows their interests are growing apart. And as a result, there's less friendly growth with the children than if Mercury had been in good dignity, which would have indicated more and more friendly things to talk about. So these are like this when it comes to friendship, because of Mercury being in bad dignity in this Saptamsha, it's more like the friendship has waned over the years. It hasn't grown. It's done the opposite. It's hurt that 11th bhava of increasing and growing due to the interests between the changing, and the mother having very different interests now than the children. Okay, but there's plenty of good stuff in this Saptamsha that we've seen otherwise that still makes for nice stuff. But then Mercury will sometimes frustrate things and create a little frustration or a desire not to listen to the other person's latest, greatest thing that they're doing in life because one party just doesn't believe in that being a great thing, Just like that, friends are friends because they have enthusiasm about the same things. Well, this is not the case so much with this mother and her children because we see this bad Mercury in the Saptamsha. In the Navamsha chart, Mercury's in a great friend sign. So that's good. So Mercury's going to help create friendship in their marriage over time with luck under the influences of Mercury. Okay. The last Mercury Antardasha they had, that was very much true. That's when they started a whole new world of doing new things that they'd never done, a whole new world of friendship in their marriage life. At the same time as less with their siblings. Mercury helped the friendship in their marriage life, Navamsha, but hurt the friendship with their children, which is Saptamsha. The Dasamsha, Mercury is in great shape as well. So this shows that business acumen and skills can very much help them gain and benefit and improve in their area of work and in their success, which has been true. In the Dwadasamsha, Mercury is in dignity too, in good dignity as well. So open communication, friendship with parents, and gaining friendship with parents has been very true as well. Okay? Being raised with 10 kids, there was only so much parents to go around. But then after everyone moved out, this person's friendship with their parents grew and their level of friendship actually grew and increased due to this nice, helpful Mercury. And the reason I'm using the keyword friendship, because Mercury is friendship, right? So it's only in the Saptamsha that Mercury has really caused any decrease of growth. Mercury is growing friendship everywhere in life and growing skills in everywhere in life, but in the context of their children, there's a lack of skill, a lesser degree of skill than initially, and lesser friendship than initially. It's decreasing. Okay, Jupiter's an interesting one in this chart because you're seeing some parts Jupiter's really great. Jupiter's in Sagittarius in the Rashi chart, and then it's exalted in the Dwadasamsha chart. So it's got some real strength there. But everywhere else, Jupiter's not good. It's in a great enemy sign in the Hora. It's a great enemy sign in the Chaturtamsha, great enemy sign in the Navamsha, great enemy sign in the Dasamsha. So in 4 charts, it's in bad shape. So Jupiter's just so far overall is the worst planet we've looked at. Now in a woman's chart, Jupiter's the husband. In a man's chart, Venus is the wife. So a good place to start with Jupiter always is, okay, what's the influence of the husband on this woman's life? Well, in the Rashi chart, and also this Jupiter aspects the 9th bhava strongly, the 11th bhava strongly, 7th bhava quite strongly to 49 points, and of course it's in the 3rd bhava. So the 3rd bhava is the most important bhava, then the 9th bhava, then the 11th, then the 7th. And because Jupiter is the husband, you always want to look at Jupiter's influence to the 7th bhava, because that's Jupiter's direct ability to make for a good partnership with that woman. Okay? Now in the Rashi chart, Jupiter's in great shape. He's in his own Rashi in Sagittarius. And so Jupiter creates a great path in life. Okay, and that's true. The husband, Jupiter, created a great path for this person in life, in general. But we know Jupiter's in bad shape in lots of places. And by a good path, I mean a path where this woman was totally secure, totally had all of her financial needs met, had all her needs met. Just the husband who comes along and gives her this total path of, all right, you don't have to worry about anything the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about a job. You don't have to worry about a house. Not that he was wealthy or anything, but he was just such a responsible person that the husband created all that for her. He really believed in having a family and taking care of that family and developing resources for the families, not just generation, but in succeeding generations as well. And so they had this great path given to them by their husband, Jupiter. Okay? That allowed Jupiter to enjoy third house things. This person spent a lot of time doing crafts to beautify the house. Was always making things, very third house, lots of time to read and enjoy life. Of course, they had some difficulties of Jupiter. And, any planet in the third house suffers difficulties, right? Jupiter's children, Jupiter in the third house, means you have some stress with children. Well, so she had kids and they were stressful. But now let's look in the other Vargas. Let's look at the Navamsha, because Jupiter's running a really strong aspect there. Jupiter's in a great enemy sign in the Navamsha chart. So it's hurting the ninth bhava. It's hurting the satisfaction and fulfillment of married life. And that's very, very true. It was very painful for this woman to be married to this husband just because of his belief systems. Okay? So Jupiter did not support her belief in her life's path and life in general. And that, which means the husband had a very different belief system and ideology that made it really, in general, hard for this woman to live with him and put a big hole in the marriage path. While Jupiter looks like it's giving such a great path in the Rashi, the truth is the marital path, the committed Navamsha path, which is the most important path, Jupiter's trashing that. And if any Varga, the dignity in the important Varga would be much more important than the important dignity in the Rashi. So Jupiter's influencing the ninth house in the Rashi, good, but it's trashing the ninth bhava cusp in the Navamsha. So what's going to happen? The Navamsha is going to happen. Okay? Because that's always the critical, the most important thing. Okay? If you're looking at a house, the most critical single thing on that house will be what's going on in that critical Varga. So on the ninth house, it's the Navamsha. And Jupiter's trashing it there. So Jupiter is not, the husband's not making this woman feel fulfilled in her marriage life. He's given her a great path, as we've seen in the Rashi. Let's say Jupiter had been in bad dignity in the Rashi chart. Then the woman would have had also a horrible life given to her by her husband, a very difficult path where money was short and she couldn't have faith in him. This woman had every reason to have complete faith in her husband because he was going to do everything right. But no fulfillment there. No, the Navamsha makes us feel like what we have is fulfilling. No, Jupiter's not giving any of that. And in a woman's chart, unless Jupiter rules the first house or is the Atmakaraka, then Jupiter's going to be the husband. So the husband still manages to botch the marriage, to really create an unhappy lifestyle for his wife, even though giving her a great path and being totally responsible. And that's exactly what happened. Okay? A guy who on the surface is really taking care of everything, all the superficial stuff taken care of, but who on the inner stuff to make her really feel like life is worth living, didn't know how to give any of that to a woman. And as a result, this woman divorced twice in Jupiter Dasha. 2 divorces in Jupiter Dasha as a result. Okay? Alright, so now we see Jupiter ruin that ninth bhava cusp, and that's the critical thing, that loss of direction in life, because the husband doesn't have the ability to create really a direction this woman can really feel fulfilled with. Again, the Rashi is the external path you're on, but the Navamsha is the fulfillment you feel from being there. It's better to be on a hard path and be fulfilled on it than on this, like this woman had to be on a path that the husband just takes care of every need, but a path which is miserable nonetheless. And that's what this woman's path was in Jupiter Dasha. Okay? In the Dasamsha, Jupiter Dasha is hurting the ninth house. So it's taken away of any sense of purpose of doing anything great. The woman did not work throughout the entire Jupiter Dasha. Okay? Then in the We'll look at it in the Septumsha chart, of course, because Jupiter's the critical planet in the Septumsha chart. And also because it's the husband, and so the Septumsha has a lot to do with your husband. Here, Jupiter's in better shape. He's in a neutral sign. Okay? So he's not hurting anything, but he's not helping a whole lot other than the first bhava. And that's important. Why is he helping that first bhava? Well, he rules it. He aspects it, not at all. So he's really not helping it too much. But at least he rules it. We've been looking at aspects and conjunctions. But another way a planet has a huge impact on a house is if it rules it, like I mentioned in the last video. So Jupiter rules the first house, so it has some importance there. And how good it does is based not on its dignity, but on its Lajitadhyavashta. Okay? So for Jupiter, that means it's getting helped by Sun and Moon, its friends, very much helped by its friend Mars, then hurt by Mercury and Venus somewhat. But it got a lot more help from its friends, especially this Mars. So this is a good, delighted Jupiter, especially because it's in a natural friend sign. So Jupiter is going to be able to produce the first bhava in the Septumsha. And that's a conception bhava because it's the seventh from the seventh and one of the critical bhavas. So Jupiter was able to create children. The husband, which is Jupiter, was able to help with producing children. No problem. Okay, so Jupiter Dasha was able to give those children because it's strongly connected to the Septumsha Varga, and in good dignity, or in good Lajitadhyavashtas. It influences the ninth house from a good dignity, so it's helping that critical ninth house. So that means children will give a sense of meaning and purpose to this woman's life that she's happy with. Very true. Okay. Jupiter's in the third bhava, conjuncts the third bhava, cusp in the Rashi. So Jupiter's boosting the third bhava in the Septumsha. So that helps them handle the difficulties of children in an enjoyable, fun way. Okay, and the third house also is the house of hobbies and trips and short journeys and things like that, which this person very much enjoyed and shared with their children because of a good Jupiter there. Okay, so Jupiter is nice in the Septumsha, all in all. And again, the husband did fine with helping her with children in the context of creating children, healthy children, doing that, raising the family, saying no problem. But overall, the marriage life just can't be happy with the Navamsha being bad. So this is a good example where we see a lot of, some good Jupiter stuff in some of the Vargas. But then in the Navamsha, the key Varga, Jupiter's in bad shape. So overall, in one of the key Vargas, in the context of their ninth house, this person didn't find a lot of happiness along their path. They found happiness with their children, but they didn't find a great fulfillment along their path and choices in life because that Navamsha, Jupiter, was in bad shape. So they were thinking, I'm glad I got my kids, but I wish I got them with another man. Okay? Is practically a direct quote from this woman. Okay, Hora chart. In the Hora chart, the third house is one of the important houses, right? Because if you take the numbers in the number 2, 1 plus 2, you get 3. So third bhava is an important bhava. And Jupiter is in the third bhava in the Rashi chart. So anytime we look at the third bhava, we should pay some emphasis to the third bhava in the Rashi chart, in the Hora chart, sorry. And there, Jupiter is in a great enemy sign. So it's hurting the third bhava. Okay. And how did that manifest? Well, this person in Jupiter Dasha did nothing to earn money. They had lots of skills and talents, as we've seen by Jupiter in the third in the Rashi chart, spent a lot of time doing those things, but never earned anything from any of them. Okay? They were totally dependent on their husband at that time, financially. And we'll see how Jupiter set up this nice little path for her to not have her needs met in the Rashi chart. Then we see how Jupiter's great for dealing with, helping the kids survive and do well. Jupiter's good in the Saptamsha. Okay? But in the Hora chart, Jupiter's hurting the third house. Okay? Now the third house is your individual, your self-effort. Jupiter's hurting the self-effort. She had no financial responsibilities whatsoever. The husband would give her a certain amount of dollars every month, and that would be the dollars for feeding the kids and taking care of the kids for the rest of the month. The woman did not buy anything outside of that allowance. Like she couldn't go, I think I want a new car, let's talk about getting a new car. Or I think I want a new piece of furniture. No, any of those decisions were all made by the husband. So Jupiter really destroyed in the Hora that exploration of all the ways she could fulfill her responsibilities. It destroyed the self-effort to be responsible, okay, for her. Now, in some ways, it's good that Jupiter's destroying the third house, because that's the house of self-effort. And so he sort of took over that. And we see that because Jupiter's good in the Saptamsha and Jupiter's good in the Rashi. So they just destroy that self-effort part of, self-made responsibility and self-made worth, which is what the third house is about. The husband did not allow a space to provide that at all. Okay? So they didn't earn it all in Jupiter Dasha. Not whatsoever. Okay. Let's see. I think we looked at... Okay, the only Varga we didn't touch Jupiter. Important. Well, did we talk about it in the third bhava? Oh, we didn't do Drakana yet. Okay, in the Drakana, Jupiter is sitting in a neutral sign. It's not good or not bad. And again, we're talking about influencing the third bhavakas. It's in a neutral sign. So that means they did average with respect to dealing with their associates and their siblings. Now, Jupiter can give an abundance of stuff, okay? And while it gave an abundance of siblings, throughout the Jupiter Dasha, they had very little contact with their siblings due to being in another country that entire time and not having the luxury of traveling to that other country, okay? So, not an abundance with their children. Same with their associates and teammates. Being at-home mom reduced a lot of that, especially at a time when most women were starting to go to work, and so it's not like she had a bunch of women around to play, cards with and watch soap operas with. Wasn't so. So not a lot of development. Not a lot of abundance of associates and teammates and siblings, especially in the Jupiter Dasha. Okay? Again, Mars in that Varga we've seen is good. Mars is really boosting that third bhava. So the ones they have, they work with really effectively, as we've mentioned, but there's just not an abundance of them. Even though they have an abundance of siblings, Jupiter Dasha didn't let them associate with those siblings. Okay, and there was some sadness on account of that, because they wanted to go visit more often. The husband wouldn't let them. Okay, their husband wasn't going to pay for the airfare, basically, for them to make regular trips there. And again, Jupiter's neutral. He's just so-so. He's not terrible, but he's not really supporting it. So it was just so-so. In the Dwadasamsha, Jupiter's in great condition where he's exalted. And that's really nice in general, okay? Because the Rashi chart is you, the Dwadasamsha is your inherited you. Who you are because of your gene pool and your ancestral background, which is your gene pool. So both these Vargas sort of show who you as an individual, who you are. And all these other Vargas are sort of in between these two. This is you as an individual, the Rashi chart, along your individual path. And the Dwadasamsha is all the you that you bring upon that path, all your ancestral and inherited qualities that you bring along that individual path that you're on this lifetime. So they're very strongly related, these two Vargas, very similar, these two Vargas. And Jupiter's in good shape in both these Vargas. They're in great shape in both these Vargas, which means Jupiter in the Rashi chart makes her feel good about herself. Jupiter in the Dwadasamsha makes her proud, and I use the word proud because Jupiter is Garvita, or exalted there, which makes him Garvita, which means proud. They're proud of where they come from. They're proud of their family background. They're proud of their ancestry, which is the same as saying they're proud of themselves. This person is a proud individual through this Jupiter. They recognize their own goodness. Jupiter becomes proud because it recognizes its goodness, its virtue, its knowledge, and its understand and its wisdom. And this woman totally has that. She married a husband who totally didn't, give her the power that she could have, and didn't give her the fulfillment she was worthy of. And did it make her feel belittled? Did she feel like a badly treated woman? No. She had pride through all of it. And that made her deal with all that unfavorable fate, the unfavorable marriage fate of Jupiter, standing up straight the whole time, smiling the whole time, proud of who she was, even if it was really, really difficult to live with her husband, And so always look at Rashi and Dwadasamsha and see those are sort of the two Vargas, and all this other stuff is happening too. It's happening to you. And if you're solid and strong, all those other things are more bearable. So those difficult things I mentioned that Jupiter gave, because it is in bad dignity in many places, they just bore them very proud without getting demeaned, without developing an ego complex, because Jupiter is just shows a proud individual, a proud and happy individual, and a wise individual, which is qualities of Jupiter. Okay, so but between those two things, there's a lot of things in life in Jupiter Dasha that weren't really desirable. Especially the Navamsha part, and that's an important thing because Jupiter aspects that ninth house really strongly, and in the Navamsha, Jupiter's the husband. Okay, enough said on Jupiter. We're going to run out of time before we finish Venus. Are we on Venus yet? Okay, Venus. Venus is in the 10th house again. Venus is in a great enemy sign, hurting the 10th bhava in the Rashi. In the Dasamsha, Venus goes into a friend sign. So good. Diplomacy, developing win-win situations. This person can do this at work. In the Rashi chart, they can't do it in general in life. They're not a great diplomat. They don't know how to create win-win situations. And does that mean they're abusive? No. What it means is somebody loses. Okay? In this case, the woman is more inclined to lose, this person. So Venus ultimately is a planet of making people behave better, making people treat you better, while also getting treated better themselves. In general, this person doesn't have a lot of skill with that. Okay? In general, they're just not that way. If things aren't working away from the beginning, like that is good for everybody, this person's just inclined to just let them run that way until somebody can't handle it anymore. A good Venus, if things feel a little discomforting, it makes changes to keep them comfortable. Venus loves making changes and adapting and negotiating, so everyone's happy the whole time. So this person's on a bus getting squished by two people. They're just going to suffer that the whole way until finally they just can't stand it anymore and explode. Okay, a good Venus will say, hey, can you maybe not lean on me this hard, and I'll move over another inch, and then we can both be a little more comfortable. This person can't do that in general. Now, in the other place, what's the important Varga for Venus? The Navamsha. Venus in the Navamsha is in a great enemy sign, and he's sleeping there. So in married life is where they have a double whammy of this problem. This problem also is in their marriage life. So we have talked about how the husband was difficult due to this bad Jupiter in the Navamsha. But then her negotiating ability, her ability to make the husband want to do better was non-existent. So this woman didn't know how to say, I'm uncomfortable, please do this. She was too self-effacing, too easy to go into to deny herself things, too easy just to be happy on her own, until over a long time she just had to get out of that marriage because so much had built up. It became an impossible fix. A good Venus fixes the small things as you go down the road so that it always runs. And Venus rules vehicles. It's just like taking care of a car. If the minute something goes wrong in your car, you fix it, you'll never have a major problem with your car. You never get stranded on the side of the road. And that's the idea. And marriage is the same way, and that's what Venus does. He makes those small adjustments to keep something running smoothly for a long period of time. A bad Venus won't do that. A good Venus does. This woman had a bad Venus in general in the Rashi and in the Navamsha. So they can't take charge and make the fixes they need to. And so one day they just tell their husband, I want a divorce. And the husband's like, what? What's wrong? You've never complained. What's wrong? And she's like, and he wants to make things work, and she just is done. Boom. Because the car exploded. It just blew up. And it didn't seem fixable anymore. There's a point where you get your car and you're like, it just isn't worth fixing. And that's the point this woman got to in her marriage. And that's, you can get to that point, but if you get to that point because you don't take care of your car along the way, then it's your own fault. So that's where this woman's responsibility came in. She didn't know how to take care of her marriage along the way until finally it was just so screwed up, it was junkyard time. It just couldn't be fixed. So again, we always have our equal blame when a relationship doesn't work. As funny as it is to blame it on the husband, there's usually something the woman has that, creates a link with that husband. And with this woman, it was that Venus. She wasn't able to bring the best out of him, to get him on better behavior. She didn't even try until one day she was just done with him. And, what his point of view is, she just went insane. He just thinks one day she woke up and went crazy and divorced him because he had no idea that anything was even wrong. So, this is not a good Venus in the Navamsha, unfortunately. And why are we looking at Navamsha? Well, because Venus is the key planet in the Navamsha, so we have to look at it there. Not only is it in a natural enemy sign, it's also starved by the moon as well. It's conjunct moon in the Rashi chart, so it's a bad Venus. And it's not getting helped by its friend Mercury, and its friend Saturn is helping it to a mediocre 4 points. So it's a totally trashed Venus, unfortunately. Now, interesting enough, one of the most common reasons you'll find people getting divorced or ending relationships is when the moon starves a planet, such as Venus or Mercury or Saturn. When the moon stars one of those, that moon will tend to want to end the relationship because the person will just realize how unhappy they are. And they'll want to be on their, they'll just go, geez, I'm not willing to live for this relationship anymore. I want to live for myself. And then they end it. They get out of that partnership. So the moon influencing Venus, starving moon, moon starving Venus, Mercury, or Saturn, if those are relationship-centered planets, will ruin your marriage at some point. Okay? Tom Cruise has a Venus-Moon conjunction. He's a great example of that as well. Okay, so Venus is not sitting really happy there. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on Venus. I'm going to be really brief there because we are running out of time, meaning this video is going to get so long you're going to get hungry and leave. Okay, let's just go to Saturn real quick. And at a glance, you can see Venus is a real bad planet. In the first, second, third, fourth Vargas, and in the Navamsha and the Dwadashamsha, in 6 of the 8 Vargas, Venus is in bad dignity. And it's in a friend's dignity in the Dasamsha and the Saptamsha, in 2 Vargas. So at work, in the context of managing her children, she can be diplomatic and work out the small things as they need to get fixed. But in every area of life, they don't know how to fix things along the way. They don't know how to make the small adjustments to keep everybody and everything happy. As a result, they're just not as successful in finding fulfillment with other people as they would be. And that's very much true for this person. Okay, they don't find huge fulfillments with people. You know, Venus is not a great Venus. Okay, they're usually happier doing their own thing, which is a moon Venus thing. Okay, even though moon Venus always wants lots of love and affection at the same time, but this Venus, because it is in bad shape, doesn't help that process. Saturn's in the 12th bhava. That's the strongest bhava it's going to influence. The strongest aspect it makes is to the 6th bhava to 52 points, and then the 2nd to 50. 12th bhava. So Saturn's about expenses. Now, expenses are not a bad thing. It's what we put out to enjoy life. Saturn in the Rashi chart's in a great friend sign. So Saturn's going to make intelligent choices about their expenses. I mean, the money they spend, they're going to feel in general was worth it, was rewarding. And that's what money's for. You're meant to spend it and go, I'm really glad I spent it because it's really worth what I have after spending that money. Bad plan in the 12th house is I've spent, the money and I wish I hadn't. Okay? Now, Saturn in the 12th will tend to be cautious with expenses. Okay? It won't be a waste. It won't be wasteful in general. In this case, it's not. It's a good, frugal, intelligent Saturn in good dignity. So in general, this person spends intelligently, spends carefully, and doesn't spend extravagantly. The word I would like to use the best for Saturn is simple. That's a word we often forget when we think about Saturn. We always think of more mean, difficult, bad words. But really, the virtue of Saturn is his simplicity. And simplicity is a virtue, and that's Saturn's virtue. So this person spends simply. They're simply in how they spend. That's going to increase their resources, which is 2nd house, the other planet that Saturn aspects. It's going to make their responsibilities more simple, because if you spend too much, your responsibilities get out of hand, right? And then your 6th house debt, it's going to help you manage your debt effectively. All due to this nice Saturn of simply spending. That's that Saturn in general. So, in the horror chart, Saturn's in the same dignity. So they very much manage their responsibilities that way, and that quality is amplified. In the Drevkina, Saturn's in exactly the same position. So now we have a triple quality of simple expending, as a result, low debt, simple debt management, and simple financial responsibilities. And looking good. So this Saturn is going to help this person financially and in enjoying the money they spend. Compare that to Jupiter, who was aspecting just a 13 points to 12th house, but was bad in most Vargas, where this person didn't really enjoy spending money at all. Whereas in Saturn Dasha, they've enjoyed spending money, simply on simple things and really felt it was worthwhile. In the Chaturtamsha, Saturn's in good shape too. So this has helped increase their fortune, have them more to feel fortunate about. Because if you spend wisely, you have things, both memory things and concrete things that you feel was really worth the money. If you waste your money and you end up with a bunch of garbage that you don't even want, or everything you get breaks, it's like, geez, I don't feel fortunate at all. I have 100 cars and none of them run. You know what I mean? You feel more fortunate if you have one car that runs. So this Saturn will help increase their fortune in life and their wealth in life too. Now in the Saptamsha, Saturn all of a sudden is debilitated. Okay, let's go back to that. Let's cover the good Saturns first. Saturn aspects the ninth house quite strongly. Oh no, it's a weak. I'm sorry, it's actually weak to the ninth. 22 points. But in the Navamsha, Saturn is strong at least. So that simple qualities of wanting, it's that simplicity of Saturn, wanting simple spending, simple responsibilities, and simple debt management, which is what the Saturn wants to create, helps their marriage too in Saturn Dasha. And their Saturn Dasha marriage has been better than their Jupiter Dasha marriages. And because Saturn's in good dignity in the Navamsha, it just maximizes all that. This person's a simple person, but in a good, effective way. Simplicity is a virtue. In the Dasamsha, Saturn goes into a neutral sign. So Saturn is not going to help the person in their career. It's not going to make them really ambitious to take on an extra load in Saturn Dasha, but it's not going to demolish their career either. Good thing. Okay? Again, if they have the simple satisfaction of their career giving them the money that they need to manage their simple responsibilities, they're going to be happy. End of story. In the Dwadasamsha and the Saptamsha, Saturn is in debilitation. Debilitation in the Saptamsha and in the Dwadasamsha he's in a neutral sign. So just so-so. Now, in Saturn Dasha, there hasn't been much going on in respect to their ancestors. Their last parent died in Saturn Dasha. Saturn's in a neutral's dignity, so they died at a healthy age. It wasn't unexpected. It wasn't tragedy. It was a healthy age to die. But then Saturn's not really helping. It's not helping the 12th Bhava to give any ancestral connections during the Saturn Dasha. Okay, and Saturn's key in the Dwadasamsha because it's in the 12th Bhava. And what has it done? It's neutralized ancestral things. There's no more ancestors. Last ancestor passed in the beginning of Saturn Dasha. Alright, Saptamsha is the one problem with Saturn Dasha. And therefore Saturn Dasha. Saturn's aspect to the critical houses, 7th Bhava, 36, and 5th Bhava, 30th. Now, 7th Bhava is the house of actual conception. So Saturn is obviously not going to produce conception in Saturn Dasha. It's not going to have an increase with children. It's not going to spend wisely with children, which means it's not going to, again, I'm using the word expense because this is a spending Saturn, a Saturn that's conscientious of how it spends and manages its money. Saturn is not going to do that wisely in the context of children, which means any money this person might spend on their children will be on bad account. I mean, they might spend it, but it might have been better had they hadn't. The thing they give the children the money for, will probably not work out. Okay, so this person should be really cautious with, spending wealth on their children during this time. Okay, and Saturn there was one part in the Saturn Dasha where the person, one of the siblings needed a place to stay for a while and a car to borrow for a while. So this was this person spending on their children, and it became very stressful for this parent, and the parent got very, very stressed, which is Saturn debilitated. So this is a really period where the children should not ask too much of the parent, because the parent won't really have much to give in that sense, and will get stressed really readily on account of that. They don't want to spend on account of their sibling, on account of their children during Saturn Dasha. And the one time they had to, they were really irritated by that. And any wealth they might give their children during this time, any expense they make on their children will be on bad account. Okay? Meaning it wouldn't have been good to buy that thing their child needed or thought they needed anyway. Or if they needed it, they'll buy it and it'll turn out to break the next day. Or give problems and not have been a good buy. And that's been true in this person's Saturn Dasha. Um, so, um, so Saturn's hurting that Septumshas. You know, in general, they're a simple spender, but when it comes to their children, that's when they don't know how to manage their monies and their finances and have a simple, pragmatic, sensible approach. And that's very true for this person. So there we just did an hour and 20-minute reading just looking at planetary positions. Now, if we had just looked at planets and houses just on the Rashi chart, it would have been a 10-minute reading that didn't have a lot of detail and not a lot of accuracy. It would have been really a rough sketch. Using the Vargas, we can see a lot of details about these people's life quite simply. And it's nice to be able to have a simple technique that you can rely on some details with, because it'll be hard to make mistakes with simple techniques. So just try this technique. See what planets, which are the key Vargas to look into. Look at the planet's dignity. Look at what houses it's aspecting. And using your knowledge of what a planet is, what houses rule, just sort of piece together the story and see what you come up with. And a lot of things will get explained that you have missed before, due to the fact that all the Vargas have an impact on everything we do in life. It's just some Vargas have the bigger part of the impact, like Navamsha for marriage things, and Navamsha for Venus things, and Navamsha for ninth house things. But the other Vargas impact those things as well. So we can see the whole picture of what's a planet in a house really doing. Okay? All right. Thank you.